So insufflation failures are very, very important in laparoscopy, and you can find it usually in obese patients because there's a lot of fat, abdominal fat that you got to go in. Then thin patients, as I mentioned before, patients with abdominal scar because they may have a lot of adhesions, and those with failed insufflation. So you put the varus needle through the umbilicus, your pressures are high or whatever you test, either way which you do, and then you figure out, well, you got to go re-enter again. So now you've created this pocket of fluid where the you are preperitoneally insufflated. There's no way you can get in through that peritoneum again, because and then the first thing is when the air is coming out, escaping, you have a tendency to plug it off instead of just let all the air come out and then try it again in the same place, or actually go to a different place. So there are several ways and techniques, and you need to be familiar with all of these. First one is the umbilicus. Majority of people go through the umbilicus, and the thing is we put in thin patients needle under 45-degree angle. One thing you should never do is put the patient in Trendelenburg position while you're inserting varus needle, because that's the way to disaster. It's going to create 90-degree angle directly to the blood vessels, and that's how I got my first aorta. And then the direct it looks very barbaric, but it's very safe technique. Studies have shown on multiparous patients, you lift the abdominal wall and you put the trocar, and it goes almost parallel with the big blood vessels, and it's kind of safe technique to get in. Now we have these visual trocars that you can go through, but nothing is 100% safe. Then there is a Hassan technique where you make a small incision and you do laparotomy, but it's very difficult when you have this much of fat and you have to go through 1 inch of incision to get in. So it becomes very challenging, and it's not really the best way. And there are ways even with this to get bowel injuries, even vascular injuries, and I'll show you videos of that too. Then there's uterine insufflation that my mentor taught me, God bless his soul, Mac Wolf. Steve knows him, remembers him, and he was an amazing surgeon, and he came up with the idea of putting the varus needle through the cervix and through the fundus of the uterus. One thing is you cannot do chromotubation after that, but still you can get in the abdomen, and we published series on those, because the original laparoscopies when they were done by the pioneers of surgery, Palmier, one of them, were done through the cul-de-sac, but in cul-de-sac you may have endometriosis, all the topics, all that, and it's kind of not really the best way. So this shows the needle through the uterus. And then in 1994, Joe Childers from Arizona, he republished the Palmier's technique through left upper quadrant, and that caught up. You know how medicine goes in circles. Something is very popular that goes out of favor, and then 50 years later comes back in favor. So this was the case with the Palmier's point, and from that day I use all the time just the Palmier's point insufflation. It works great on big patients. As I said, in Louisville we have tons of huge patients. After all, we are the headquarters of Kentucky Fried Chicken. My fellow here, she's standing on a step stool and trying to insufflate this patient. So these are just and then also we get a lot of patients with previous abdominal scars. So this lady here, she had 20 previous laparotomies, and she came in for ovarian remnant that we removed, and luckily, amazingly, she had no adhesions whatsoever. And we went through a left upper quadrant. This lady here had 10 previous surgeries that my fellow, and then later on my partner, she also insufflated through left upper quadrant. So if you take one take-home message from my entire lecture, is then at least in these very difficult patients with previous surgeries and very obese patients, always go in left upper quadrant. This is an old slide with my assistant was making it. She said, is this her front side or back side? And so another thing is when you read books, the old books, they say insufflate to 2 or 3 liters, which is completely wrong. And then Doug Hurt did the great study where he looked at the intraperitoneal pressure. So in the beginning of surgery, if you insufflate to just 3 liters or pressure of 14, 15, this is the distance between your trocar and retroperitoneal vessels. However, when you insufflate to 25 millimeters of mercury, just temporarily, not for the entire case, you don't even have to lift the uterus. The pressure does it for you. So the same analogy works for you, like if you have a flat tire, you don't check the volume of gas in your tire, you check the pressure, and if the pressure is high, that means the abdomen will be distended and you can safely put the trocars in. Because when you find this and the patient doesn't have ectopic pregnancy, you may be in deep trouble. So the first thing is to put the patient in Trendelenburg position. So here we are looking at the promontory, and we're looking here of right external iliac artery, right common iliac artery right here. So promontory is here, and here is the trocar injury of my resident that basically was a female resident. And I always teach them, take the trocar, grab your left hand because the pressures are high, so there is no reason to lift the abdomen. Take the trocar and control the pressure how you put it in. She put the finger along, you can do that because in books it says put the finger along the trocar, but it's a female finger and she had this much trocar left. When she jammed it down, she hit the promontory. So in this situation, she missed the left common iliac vein by literally 2 millimeters. And you can see the trocar injury. So that's why we go left upper quadrant, and this is the technique how we do it. We just put the Verus needle in. You don't do this only when you want to film, then the resident goes and pushes the needle left and right. Then we go with the 5 millimeter optical trocar in, and we place the 5 millimeter scope and make sure that there are no adhesions in the umbilicus, if there are, then we take and clean them. Like in this situation here, there is no way, if you do Hassan, if you do direct, if you do whatever technique, you're gonna get into this bowel because it's right underneath the umbilicus. So the only way to avoid it is to go in the left upper quadrant. And then you can see and avoid these. Of course, one thing you have to bear in mind in left upper quadrant, there is a stomach there. You gotta have an OG or NG tube. In this case, it wasn't pushed in all the way. We found ourselves looking at this red thing, and I said, what is this? Turned out it was stomach. We freaked out, called in general surgeons. They said, oh, that's nothing, just stitch it. And he said, we do this all the time. We do stomach biopsies and so on. So we did stitch it. The principle of surgery is you make a hole, you close the hole. So we basically, in order to do that, you have to know how to suture laparoscopically. If you don't know how to suture laparoscopically, then you buy a $3 million robot and try to play with it. So here is the case where we went to left upper quadrant. The lady had, and look here, my resident went just through one, she did not shish kebab the bowel, just through one layer that I recognized right away of the just bowel. And I was lucky to recognize it right away because patient was very distended. So we called in general surgeons, but our general surgeons nowadays, they all work with robots and they don't even know how to suture laparoscopically. So I said, we'll suture it. And they just kind of watched me. So I put the stitches in the stomach. The patient came for tubal ligation, but no, this one came from the previous one with the stomach injury was tubal ligation. This one came for a TOA, and that's why she was distended, and everything went fine.